So lovely to meet you, Kate. Do you want to tell people a little bit about Love Sober before we start?
Yeah, I'd love to. And thank you for inviting me on. It's really great to be here. So Love Sober is, I suppose most people know us as the podcast that I do with Mandy. And I did start Love Sober a while ago as a blog when I was kind of getting myself braver to actually be, visible, because I blogged for a few years on sober forums, but I was sort of ready to come out, if you like, and that was amazing, because then Mandy found me and said, "Do you fancy doing a podcast?" And I went, "Yeah, why not? Never listened to one, never done one. Let's do one." So we started it. It's just our first birthday was this week, which is awesome, and we've had something like 67,000 downloads, and we just get messages from people, and we're sort of linked up with, I don't know, this that feels like the worldwide sober web. And yeah, so we mainly talk with two mums, and I suppose it's about having a chat about mental health, parenting, life, warts and all, but all through a sober lens, joining up all the dots between all of those, really.
Yeah, it's great, because when the media ask me for anything about parenting, right, I go, "Kate, Mandy, you want to do it?" Because that's not what I do. I don't have any experience, so I'm always grateful to you guys for that.
Thank you.
And always keep equally, I suspect I can do most of the queer stuff the other way, but less on the parenting. So we all have our role to play.
We do. We all have our strengths.
Unique human beings. So I'm really excited about today's topic, because you want to talk about self-care for sobriety, and I think there's some really interesting topics in this, and I know that you've been doing quite a lot of work on this. So I was going to let you start, and then I'll do what I characteristically do, which is butt in. And there's definitely some things around those early days of sobriety where self-care is even more important. But why do you think we should put this up our agenda when we are starting to look at being sober, or even cutting down your drinking? It's equally as important, because actually they're both behavior change journeys that you're on, and behavior change needs self-care, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And just before I delve in, please can I flag something up? Our 30-day essential toolkit, which has gone live today on the Love Sober site as well, which will actually, a lot of the stuff I'll be talking about today, because like I said, it is a massive topic, and I think it keeps growing and growing. So a lot of what I'll talk about today is in that as well. But I also was thinking I'll do a sheet of notes and resources that. So I'll just put that out there. Right. So self-care for me in sobriety. I'm really glad that this sort of conversation is gaining traction, and has gained traction in the sober community, because I think for a long time, and I think that I see this with mental health, self-care and sobriety, they were almost three different kind of conversations going on. And what I have found in my own journey is that I did a year sober, but I kind of boot camped my way through it, but I didn't have a sort of a self-care toolkit, if you like. And actually, even though I was sober, my mental health had improved, but then I was stressed, I was anxious, I was taking on too much. I didn't have a kind of holistic approach. So I'd done a bit of the journey, but I hadn't put it all together. And it all started to make a lot more sense to me to live happily as a whole person. Like you say, it's like these behavior change journeys, to link those. So, I mean, really getting rid of a noxious, addictive substance that I'd kind of self-medicated with since I was a teenager, as many of us do, was one aspect. Learning and self-care about, really good daily routines, basically, and a toolkit for living. And then the mental health, that all came a bit later on.
Yeah. And when you think about those early stages of changing drinking, have you got a blueprint where you think people should start thinking about self-care as that journey? Because we're very good at setting my goal is to not drink for 6 months, and then we focus on the not drinking and don't always focus on the tools we need to put in place to make that happen. And what are those self-care tools?
Okay, so the way that Mandy and I tend to look at this is that because it's a big subject, and I think because there are different stages to it, we have sort of talked about it in terms of different stages, and the first stage being very reactive self-care. And as we get more and more kind of almost skillful, and through those early days, we kind of go to more proactive self-care. And I'll break all this down, and there's different strands for each. And then I'd also like to talk about emergency self-care. And that can be when you've done a lot of stuff, but life throws you a curveball, shit hits the fan, and you kind of need to go back to basics. So I'll sort of divide it up into those 3 areas.
Perfect.
And also what I'd say, because it is quite big, so, you know, you might have a bit of sobriety fatigue, but be further on down the line, you know, pick a couple. And if you're early days and you might be doing some of the, you know, halt stuff, don't get overwhelmed and don't let the inner meanie take over and just think, oh, I'm not doing enough self-care and I must do this and I must do that. Pick a couple of things that you want to try out and that feel good to you, because it's about feeling better. You know what I mean? It's not about a rod to beat ourselves because we haven't meditated or something. That would be rubbish.
Yeah. So
okay, so early days. So I would say, for me as well, because people sort of go, well, what is self-care? Self-care for me is about having the dialogue, what do I need? Quite simply, it starts with that. And I think that's very pertinent for people who have drunk, because we've been masking so many needs often with alcohol. So you can't expect to be a ninja at it straight away. So it's a practice, it's a kind of an inquiry, and it's a listening in, and it's allowing yourself to ask that question. And then it's getting better at identifying what it is that you need. Okay. So I would say in the early days, the needs are kind of flying up all over the place. It's like, oh, suddenly I'm craving, or suddenly I've got a trigger. So we're kind of, you know, that's why I say it's quite reactive. And I think HALT is a really good place to start with that, which is that I think it's an AA acronym, which is hungry, angry, lonely, tired. And I mean, it sounds obvious, but how many times did I just sprint through the day waving away red flags and realise I needed a wee, or I was thirsty, or I was really hungry, and wondering why my stress levels were rising, you know? And then before you know it, the layers are adding up, and you're pushing the fuck it button and going, right, okay, I'm just going to have a glass of wine because I'm stressed. So
and recognizing when you drank, when you were drinking, when you drank. I always drank when I was hungry, because it was quicker to open a bottle than it was to eat something. And so it might be that you bring your dinner time forward, because if you've been used to opening a bottle of wine at 6 and eating at 7, you might want to go, right, I'm going to eat at 6, for example. So even looking at those patterns before you even get to the new patterns that emerge once you're changing your drinking, and applying HALT to those, that pre-planning will really help.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, you know, a lot of this is having a little think and planning and thinking about when your trigger times might be, and then you might have a healthy snack that you can just literally grab. Or like you say, you know, it was a revelation to me that wine o'clock passed, and actually if I ate something and I put the kids to bed, by the time I was able to sit, and that had all, you know, that was my big stressful kind of time. If I just sat with it, actually it just passed on its own. I had no idea, you know.
That's the discomfort, and just being able to say to yourself, this will not kill me. It's just discomfort. It will get better. That was a revelation to me. I might feel like I want to just, you know, crawl out of my skin right now, but it will pass, and it's not going to kill me.
Yeah, I think that's it. That kind of playing it forward, you know, you see that there's another bit I've written down, mantras, you know, playing it forward, this too shall pass. You know, just play it forward to bedtime, you know, your head hitting a lovely clean pillow and waking up tomorrow fresh as a daisy. And just those, you know, anything to kind of force quit. Because what we're doing in the early days, isn't it, is that it's those neural pathways that we're resetting that people talk about. And that's a bit of, like, I see it as a rinse and repeat, just literally plodding through those early days.
And learning how to distract yourself.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. I've put distract. I used, Netflix. I got into Dallas. I always say I used the hashtag Dallas got me sober. Yeah, it was on UK. It's on Sky Gold or something, on one of those. And I realised, because I was like a 70s kid, and I was like, oh, I remember I had these vague memories, and it was hugely comforting to me to sit and I literally watched right from the beginning. Sounds like Dallas got me sober.
Fair enough. I mean, we've got a whole list of people that have come up within workshops, and include everything from, just going for a walk around the block rather than give in to that urge, or phoning a friend, having a list of people you want to call during that week, and saying, right, at 6 o'clock every day for this week, I'm going to call somebody and have a conversation, and one that lasts more than 2 seconds, one that isn't on WhatsApp, and let that distract me. So you can begin to build a really long list, and they're all nurturing things.
Yeah, that's the thing. You're looking at kind of nurturing things, maybe it's a warm bath, just getting in the pajama armor that we call it, or the duvet fortress, or just going for a walk. Like you say, it's that distraction. It's just literally putting a different activity in where the activity would have been drinking, and then waiting for that trigger to pass. It's muscle building.
Yeah, and it's great for me because a lot of people talk about being very tired, and I was tired for the first 3 months of changing drinking. It's just my body going, right, now rest, because you've been on high stress for so long. So just crawling under the duvet and listening to an episode of a book was really great for me, and also the just seeing that as a treat and a reward, and allowing myself to do that rather than thinking, oh my God, I'm skiving off of life, is really important.
Yeah, that permission to rest and be nice to yourself, I think, is really, really important. And again, that can be a practice. And you've just said the word treat, and I was going to come on to sober treats next, because this is one of my favorite topics.
Does it involve Haribo? Does it involve Haribo? No.
Well, occasionally it might do. It might have a bit of sugar sometimes.
Okay, you just rocked my world. It's not fair. Go on, tell me about your sober treats. I'll tell you about mine.
Treats. All right, love. So sober treats can be those things. I mean, they can be fresh flowers. In the early days, people freak out about sugar, and I'm like, don't freak out about sugar. That'll level out. Just do whatever it takes at the moment to not change those patterns. Yeah, exactly. And also, I think that self-care can often start outside in, right? As you go along, you talk about boundaries and self-compassion, which we'll go on to, and what people, talk about the deeper work sort of thing. But I think in the early days, it can just be that simple: a sober treat, a new lipstick, a bunch of flowers, a nice bit of cake. Is that little bit of kindness to yourself, because sometimes that's all you can do, is get through the day and do one nice thing, right? Sometimes that is enough to start the upward spiral, to think I'm worth something. I don't need to feel so ashamed of myself.
Yeah, and you can also extend that to, if you're thinking about what you're putting in your body, you don't have to go on a diet, but what you can do is fill your fridge with some of your favorite foods that make you look forward to having them. So that could be, I used to like smoked mackerel pate, for example, on a cracker and stuff like that. And just to have those there, that, you need to work out the rewards that work for you, but it is possible to begin to write a long list. And the quicker the time between that discomfort starting, or that craving starting, and knowing what you're going to replace it with, the more likely you are to succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really like that, what you've just said, because I think a lot of this is adding in. We have this, flipping the thinking from, okay, I'm giving up something. But, that takes a while if we've been going to alcohol for that reward. And just like you say, adding in those, add in. They call it crowding out, don't they? So putting so much good stuff in, you just haven't got any room for the bad stuff. It's that sort of principle. And the sober treats, where I'm a bit of a fan of the brain science, and apparently alcohol is a real dirty drug, because it works on all of the neurotransmitters. So the serotonin, that's the feel good, the dopamine, which is the woo, okay, I'm really rocking, and then the GABA, which is the anxiety one. So if you do, then it will just hit all those neurotransmitters and it will deplete them. So you'll need more. and you'll be less good at kind of getting them naturally. So, you know, by putting in sober treats, what that does is it gives you a dopamine hit, but it rewires your brain to something else. And if you're getting the dopamine from nourishing activities, then you know what, bring it on. Lovely.
Yeah. Absolutely. And for some people that might be, you know, a very short 10-minute meditation. It could be, you know, doing 10 press-ups, 20 press-ups every time that hits. You know, it's, don't just see this as getting through discomfort, but see it as rewiring your brain.
Yeah, and it is. And I think with the sober treats and the connection, I think that's another bit. Now it's so fantastic. So obviously you do amazing work with Club Soda. You've got, you know, you've got loads of different She Recovers communities, Soberistas. You've got somewhere. So it's that fear of that kind of, oh, I'm just not going to be able to enjoy myself or connect anymore. Like, that's really not the case anymore. There's so many places you can go to get that support, and I think support and connection is vital in the early days.
Also, I remember somebody came on one of our courses and said, right, from tomorrow I'm going to give up alcohol, take up exercise, and I'm getting rid of Candy Crush Saga off my phone. And I went, no, don't do all of those things. If you love Candy Crush Saga and you can lose yourself in it for 10 minutes, then that's the perfect thing when that discomfort strikes, to keep going on Candy Crush Saga. So give that up later. Don't take it all away all at once.
I mean, I think that's really important. I think people can be so hard on themselves, and you know, do the things. I like the quote, what works, do more of that. What doesn't work, try not to do that. You know, it's almost like if you've got things that are working for you, use them. They're already in your toolkit, you know? So, you know, like, I don't know, maybe you journal. That's a really good tool. You know, maybe that helps you to brain dump, to keep up with the journaling. Do you know what I mean? You might already, because I think the other thing that's really important is that people arrive often at the decision of wanting to stop drinking, be alcohol free, quite low. So, you know, give yourself a break. You will probably have tools and skills that you can already use. You know, you're not a baby. You got here and you've probably held down jobs. You've got skills. So have a think about those as well, and give yourself a bit of kudos for what you are doing, you know?
Yeah, and Rome wasn't built in a day. You don't have to do it all at once. Being sober, so it was my 7-year anniversary last week, and sobriety is still giving to me now. I am doing things I never thought I would do. I didn't do them all in the first few weeks of changing drinking, and if I had tried, I would have probably failed. So just know that once you get drinking under control, all those other things open up.
Well, you know what, I really agree, and I often think of it as almost like plate tectonics. I think we might have had a chat before about that. So what you're doing is, like, on the surface, you're doing some behaviour change and you're stopping drinking, but actually there's all this other stuff going on under the surface that is sorting itself out, and you let it, right? So just get through each day, put your sober treat in, watch your halt, get to bed, you know, do some exercise as well. That'll boost all your serotonin levels. Get some good practices in, connect with your community. And what will be happening under the surface is a lot of kind of resilience building, I believe. Just through facing, you know, you go through facing emotions each day and getting through 1 o'clock each day. That's resilience building, and that's going to be a great tool for your life, you know. So I feel very strongly about these good practices, these self-care practices, and as we develop them, they're not a fluffy practice, because some people go, oh, it's just like get yourself lipstick and a massage, and I'm like, no, they're like life skills, life tools, and they have transformed my mental health. So let's join up the self-care with the mental health and the drinking, and see it in the context of actually these are, you know, they're good for everyone. They're proper life skills. So what else I've got journaling. I think is good, because I'm nearly at the end of the early day one, unless you want to talk a bit more about that. But I think a bit of journaling is just good to have a bit of reflection, so that you can see any patterns emerging. I would say that. Okay, so proactive self-care. So if you've got a bit of sober time under your belt, I think we are getting a bit more skillful with maybe not having all the it's not feeling so, we're not in crisis so much, responding to needs. We maybe be able to preempt them a little bit, like you were saying. What have I done? So again, I love that quote, the secret of our success is hidden in our daily routines. Because I had no idea of the cycles that I was working on, and then that affected bigger cycles that then affected overarching stuff in my life. And I think this, again, setting those, like having like a morning and evening reflection for me has been amazing. So I've got to flag up the positive planner here, because some of us don't, especially busy parents and busy working people, we may not have lots of time to journal and to reflect and to navel gaze. So the positive planner, it says, like, what's your mantra for today? What is your what's 3 intentions, and what is your self-care moment? Right, that's your intention. And in the evening, it takes about 2 minutes. In the evening, it says, what went well today? How was it? And what's your gratitude moment? And it's just literally framing the day with an intention, and then just going, oh, well, how was it? Takes a couple of minutes, but it's really helped me. What's it helped me? It's helped me realise that often, well, it's helped me see what's important to me. So I might be racing through the day, but my morning intention will often be present, or give myself a bit of a break, or don't do too much.
It makes you no, but it does make you recognize things about your day that you didn't notice in the moment by going and doing that. So
yeah,
I've been realizing I don't drink enough water, and so the times when I'm tired because I'm dehydrated. Apparently drinking pints and pints of tea doesn't remedy that. Who knew?
Who knew?
Who knew? And just being able to have that subtle think about those tired moments of my day. Eating all the dessert at club soda lunch also, I have recognised, makes me very tired. I should stop doing that. So but in terms of your ongoing, a commitment to yourself, it's really good to take time to think about yourself. And definitely that's been the biggest thing for me. I still describe getting sober as being like 1,000 little epiphanies, and I'm still having many little epiphanies when I finally work out what's been going on all this time.
Yeah, I know. I love what Holly Whitaker said she did a webinar and said something like, you see the hashtag "We Are the Luckiest," and it was that, because she said something like, because we had a kind of crisis, or that things weren't working, we were kind of forced into this period of kind of self-growth. And actually it's a real gift. Like, it doesn't feel like it in the early days, but because of all this stuff that we're talking about, all this stuff that actually, to manage your day, you are going to have to take breaks, because you can't sprint through and then crash and drink wine. You're going to have to find a different way, and that's going to make you feel better.
And I think it's really important, because you're basically learning to live life in high definition now, because you haven't got wine as the crutch. And if you've been taught that wine is the answer to everything from a young age, then you are going to get occasions where you just cannot use alcohol anymore. And for me, that's been a big period of emotional development. And again, that hasn't been immediate. I have not become a perfect person suddenly, or am I there now? But I believe my ability to deal with my emotions has changed fundamentally, and it hasn't changed by some rigorous process or therapy. It's changed by giving myself space to notice how I react to things, and think and allow myself to stop and think before I react in the future. And that in itself is an amazing gift. And again, it's not terribly complex. No. It's just about beginning to learn about you, which you've probably not done before, and to listen to your gut, which, I now trust my gut. I never trusted my gut before, because, I was that horrible person who's always drunk and hungover.
Yeah, for sure. I really think that sort of listening in, what do I need? And that having that dialogue with yourself is really at the heart of self-care, because it's the ability to just go, actually, I need this right now. I might need to rest right now. I might need to go for a run right now. I mean, the other things that we came up about is that the managing the everyday, there's a few things. There's boundaries and people pleasing. So I was like, what? Used to be really annoyed by the word boundaries, because I'd just be like, I don't know what they are. And that was kind of the problem. I didn't know what they were. And when I stopped drinking, I got that kind of like, oh, hang on, you've pissed me off. Like, no, that's not going to happen. And I couldn't ignore it because it wouldn't go away. And I was like, that was a boundary. And now I trust that. I'm like, I used to think, oh, maybe I'm being paranoid because I'm hungover. Or am I being over the top because I've had a couple of drinks? And actually, because you are sober, you get used to where your lines are gradually, don't you? You go, actually, well, that's reliable, so I rely on it now. That's your boundary. So,
and that's really important, and
so important.
comes with time, but also will come naturally. So again, you know, sometimes we think that self-care is about reading tons of books and learning new skills and doing a load of therapy, when actually it's about saying that some of these things are actually quite easy, and they will begin to come with your sobriety. So for those people in their early days, these are gifts that are on their way.
Yeah, that ability to say no and not feel bad, because I see that quite a lot, that kind of, if you've been a people pleaser. Like, there's a woman called Amy Pearson who's a coach in the States, and she wrote a great thing about the 3 tribes, which was, you know, she said she was a compulsive people pleaser. So she said, you might have heard this, there's 3 tribes in the world. So this is like a little kind of parable. There's the haters, the neutrals, and then your tribe. So the haters will always hate you anyway. They think you suck, right? What they think is none of your business, right? The neutrals, they think you're all right. You know, they'll take you or leave you. They don't mind either way. And your tribe love you. They cannot get enough of you. They're just like, you are awesome. But what we do is we spend all of our time trying to dull ourselves down and try and get the haters and the neutrals to approve of us. And what happens is our tribe can't see us. So all of that approval, all of that love, and all that connection we are looking for, if we're people pleasers, we're missing. So, and
it's
I really love that. It's all already there. And again, that gentle blossoming, I think, of just getting that upward spiral. I've said I'm not going to drink, and then I didn't. I said I was going to get up then, and then I did. And you're like, I'm a person with resilience. I'm a person who I can rely on. You start being visible, I think. Well, I feel like I did, you know.
Absolutely. And gosh, the messenger's going mad today on my Facebook. I suspect it'll come beeping up. But anyway,
you're very popular.
I know, I'm all beepy today. So that brings me to another thing, because we're coming, when you're giving up drinking, you come out of a period of immense guilt, where you feel guilty about everything. And in fact, that may happen quite a bit during your change, because many of us have multiple day ones. And they don't make you feel better. They make you feel worse.
Yeah.
They make you feel a bigger failure. They make you feel guilty, particularly if you're trying to change your drinking for other people's sake. So you were talking about those emergency self-care. Tell us a bit more about that.
Okay. I've got a lot of stuff about, I was just going to say about self-compassion in that you were talking about. Self-compassion.
Because we often want to flagellate ourselves with a birch and suffer because we've done bad, when actually we need to be kind to ourselves, and that self-compassion is really important. Talk about
self-compassion. Is really important, and there's the work of Dr. Kristin Neff. Again, if I write you a list of resources, like, she's absolutely fantastic. And also beautiful is Tara Brach, who's a Buddhist psychologist, who's, it's almost like she uses old wisdoms, but because she's got a PhD in psychology, she can put it in a therapeutic way, mix the two. And she has a brilliant tutorial on YouTube called The Reign of Self-Compassion. That's Tara Brach. It's got a lecture, and then that's an acronym for recognize, allow, investigate, and nurture. So I recognize when I'm feeling shit. I investigate, what is it? I allow it. A lot of that is somatic. It's like allowing it in the body. Where is it? Often, it could be on your heart. And then the bit that I always used to miss was nurture. I'd be like, okay, I've identified the feeling correctly. Now snap out of it and move on. And I was disconnected. So I found the day that I was my last day one, which was nearly 3 years ago, I was sitting up really hungover, feeling like a ghost. on a beautiful beach, and I got home and someone had recommended this to me, and I did Tara Brach's Reign of Self-Compassion, and all I can say is I was like, okay, I've got it. It just joined up the dots for me, and I just felt like I had found this little bit in me that because I did the nurture bit, I could go, it's okay, sweetheart. You know, you made a mistake. What do you need? It's like self-care encapsulated, you know? And I was able to say, and joining that door, I realised that when I drank, it triggered a shame spiral so profound for me that I couldn't find myself for a week. Yes. And when I went, I never want to do that again. So instead of it was all of the questions, all of the thoughts, all of the rah, is it okay in this situation? It blew it out of the water, because I was like, I don't want to do that to her anymore. I don't want to lose her. I want to look after her. I want to look after little me.
And you deserve to, you know, the one person that can care for you is you. And, you know, if you keep hating yourself when these things happen, you also ignore the fact that, you know, there are some people in here who've done, like, you know, 3 months alcohol free and then, you know, slip up. And I just want to say, don't lose all of those 3 months. They haven't just suddenly disappeared just because you're going to be feeling guilty and hating yourself right now. Pull out of that, look after yourself, reward yourself for the 3 months you've done and the 3 months you're about to do again.
Yeah, I really think that, and that it's so important that there's no beating up, because I think also, you know, for me, what I did a whole year sober, and then I went back to drinking, and there was a lot of that. There was a lot of shame. There was a lot of, oh my, what on earth have I done? But you know, it's learning as well. So it's like, well, how do we do that? Let's look at what the learning was. What do I need to do differently? How did it make me feel? You know. And I think, you know, once you get back on it and you're still trying, then you're a warrior, you know, and you're awesome. So just keep going and see what and try something else, you know, try something different. Yeah.
And in behaviour change terms, it's really important for you to look out for yourself.
Absolutely. And I love that. It's funny, when I was looking at that, I think that was probably my deep work that came after a couple of years for me. But I remember I did a fantastic course, Sexy Sobriety, and Rebecca Weller, it's an Australian course, and so I found a lot. She was the first one who mentioned sober treats, you know, that I had found. And I remember sort of when I was doing that course, I looked out the kitchen window and I just thought, what if, and I love this question, and I say this to people that I talk to if they're having a bad time, I just go, what if I had my own back? What would it look like if I just had my own back 100%? You know what I mean? Instead of looking outside, I just went, and it's these acts of kindness, these acts of looking after, these acts of parenting ourselves, these acts of self-compassion, that is having your own back. And gradually, I think we get well. We recover fractured selves, we recover our sense of well-being, and we recover our resilience.
And I've never been the one I always skipped all of the tasks and the things in the exercises in workbooks and self-help books, which is no wonder they never worked for me, because you actually do need to invest some time in you. And it doesn't matter how you do with that, whether it's going to the gym, whether it's finding alternative drinks, whether it's spending time learning how to cook, because that takes your time. It's all about an investment in you, and that's probably the thing I've learned most over the last 7 years as well.
There's I just quickly, I don't know how long we've got, but I really wanted to go on to talk about the science of happiness, because when I did this course, I was like, oh my God, this is what everyone's talking about on sober forums. And like I said, I like a little bit of the nerdy evolutionary theory and neuroscience. So the science of happiness, scientists have been at the Greater Good Science Center. Love that. It's like the Greater Good in California. And they're studying what makes us work and what not what's wrong with us, but what's right with us, right? So they have scientifically proven that there's a bit of our happiness that we can do something about. There's a baseline that we've kind of genetically got, apparently. But gratitude is apparently way up there. And if you write 3 good things that you're grateful for at the end of the day. But interestingly, they said if you do it too much, it can kind of have a negative effect because it can piss you off. So they said, I think it was something like do it 3 times a week. Maybe that's just like overkill. Connection, which is what we were talking about. That's very important in like blue zones all over the planet. So we know that we need our connections. And that could be how to resolve conflict, ask for what you need, get support, be social. And I think all of that's improved for me since I stopped drinking because I'm not having drunken arguments.
Yeah.
I like to think, what is your A team? Because sometimes we don't see the support networks we've got. Like my hairdresser is in my A team. He comes around, he makes me feel better. And I bend his ear. You know, there might be hidden bits of support for you in your toolkit that you don't even know about. So it could be, your hairdresser or someone you go to the gym with and your sober community, your family. Self-compassion we've talked about. Mindfulness. That is really important. Now, I hated mindfulness for quite a long time. I was really annoyed by it. But that's because I have to move. I have to do a lot of somatic stuff. So yoga works for me. It's like a mindful movement. It could be something like painting. I think this is actually really good in the early days as well, even though it's like we're adding things in. Anything that's a mindful activity, and it could be painting, could be running, anything that shuts the voice off, anything that shuts up the wine witch, stops brain chatter. And then also those little anchor points throughout the day. Stop, how am I feeling, check in. That's really mindful as well, you know. So it can be mindfulness. It looks like this big hefty concept that only gurus do and people in the flying lotus position, but actually there's a little practical things like that. Find something
I mean, I don't particularly find a lot in the sitting still mindfulness, but I definitely am now missing not getting outside enough if I don't go for a short run, and I begin to notice that.
Me with yoga. I really have noticed it. I've got quite a lot going on. I don't know if you listen to the podcast, I don't talk that much about it, but with my son at the moment and school and educational needs, a lot of stuff going on. And at the same time, my yoga studio closed and it's moving premises. And honestly, I just felt like I don't know who I am without yoga. So I've actually started doing it at home. It's not quite the same, but I was like, oh my God, it really makes a difference.
I use Movement for Modern Life, which is on our website, because I can then do it anywhere, including at lunchtime. So at work, and it's on my phone. So have a look at that. It's on the expert resources page, but it's great.
Okay.
So and I think they spoke just before you at the festival, actually, or just after you at the festival.
Oh, it's Mandy, I think.
Yeah. So
cool. It's about finding bits that are manageable, isn't it? I was going to say,
and there is time because you're not drinking so much.
There is time,
and you're not hungover so much.
It's amazing what space opens up, and that is that thing, isn't it? What can we put in? There's also, they talk about, I see this all the time on sober forums. It's like, wow, I had an amazing walk in the woods. Or I went to the sea, and there's this sense, I think, in AA, it's like that sort of higher power or whatever. But actually, I find nature very good. Anything that stops my sort of pissy little thinking, I'd say, that I can get into sometimes, and makes me just go, like awe and wonder, switching on fairy light. I've got fairy lights all over my room. You can't see them, they're in front of me. And that's not quite
I'm shaking my head. Oh my God, she's got fairy lights.
I have them all year round.
Man.
But it's those things that give you a bit of joy, I suppose I would say, as a bit of wonder, switching on the fairy lights.
And I think the other thing to remember about happiness is that we are, as human beings, designed to be mostly okay, not ecstatically happy. And I think the media and everything gives you an idea that somehow we should be ecstatically happy all the time, looking like we should be photographed for the stock photo on the front of an American dentistry website. And that's not how life is. Being just okay today is absolutely fine.
It is. And I think there's those, what the good, the self-care practices that you do every day. it's not like you're on one every freaking day, but they will add up to an overarching sense of well-being and resilience. So what you do is maybe you don't have this all the time, you just have a gentler curve, in my experience. And that apparently, again, the science of happiness measured that over time, that makes people happier. It's not carpe diem stuff.
Well, on that bombshell,
yes.
I'm going to draw us to a close, Kate.
Okay.
We could possibly talk about this forever and ever.
I know. I haven't done any emergency self-care, but maybe we come back to that,
I think we could come back to emergency self-care.
Yeah. Okay.
Do us your top 3 emergency self-care tips.
Okay. Lockdown woman cave. So Mandy's woman cave, where the internet doesn't work. Take everything absolutely off the list, back to basics. If suddenly
and just to let people know, there are caves available for other genders and non-binary members of Club Soda as well.
Fluid.
Just a cave.
Okay.
Just a cave.
Yes. Okay. And so anything somatic. So like I had a funeral last year and had to go and wrap up in a blanket and get very warm, something that is very tactile, something to do with the senses, to really ground you. Emergency self-care. Make yourself make your world very small and really go back to basics. We say chop wood, carry water. Don't try and do it much. Just keep it very, very, very simple. And go back to your early.
Watch Game of Thrones and watch people get water or cut logs. I don't know, something like that.
I'm so loving. I really am loving Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I'm in zone 4. The cutting log possibilities are very, very small. But very useful when we get to environmental Armageddon. So
I was going to say the carbon emission, log chopping. It's fluid, isn't it? The situation's fluid. Watch this space.
As long as you don't burn them, you're okay. Cool. So thanks very much for being on this webinar with us. We'll try and put some of those resources into the email that will go out tomorrow morning. But I'm sure we'll come back to this subject again. There'll be more opportunities to do that.
Yeah, I'd love to. It's a big one, isn't it? It's a biggie once you start really picking it apart. So yeah.
Absolutely. Send me all your links.
Thank you, will do. Thank you so much.
And I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, take care. Thanks.
Bye.
Lots of love. Bye.